Prime Minister Justin Trudeau kicking off his third mandate as he shuffled his cabinet during a swearing-in ceremony today. Some big shakeups here. Trudeau's cabinet looks significantly different. It is made up of 19 women and 19 men.
The PM naming some new ministers to key portfolios while adding a number of rookies. Some veteran ministers pushed out entirely. There is a lot to get into, so we welcome to the show tonight Tom Mulcair, former federal NDP leader and CTV News political commentator, Jason Leader, conservative strategist and president of Enterprise, and Scott Reid, CTV News political commentator. Great to have you all with us. Mr. Mulcair, we'll begin with you. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole today saying that this is an inexperienced cabinet and a threat to national unity. Do you agree with that?
I strongly disagree with that. I think that Mr. Trudeau had a very good day. He showed that he was the boss. He was not afraid to tell somebody who's been around for a long time, like Marc Garneau, thanks for the memories, but you'll make a wonderful ambassador to Paris. And at the same time, he brought in some fresh blood. Mr. Trudeau's often talked about being a feminist prime minister. You look at the top line, you look at the finance minister with Chrystia Freeland. You have the president of the Treasury Board, Mona Fortin. You've got Melanie Jolie, who's our foreign affairs minister now, and of course the defense minister with Anita Anand. So I think that if you look at that, that's already a big change. I've never seen that many women in such powerful positions. And by the way, every single one of them is eminently qualified for those very powerful positions. And it's not symbolism, but it also is an indication that Mr. Trudeau is ready for change. On the climate change front, a lot of courageous moves. He's taken the very capable and experienced Minister Wilkinson out of environment, put him into natural resources. He knows all the players in the sector, the oil and gas sector, for example, and in other resource extraction areas. Stephen Guilbeault, one of Canada's best known and most respected environmentalists, will be able to accompany Mr. Trudeau to Glasgow next week and really put a good face on Canada's poor performance so far, but have a lot of promise and be credible in doing it. So I think that overall, honestly, Trudeau had a very good day.
I'd like to pick up on that credibility of Minister Guilbeault. Scott, what do you make of him way back when under the Chrétien, under Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, climbing the CN Tower for Greenpeace and saying Canada was not following up with the Kyoto Accord? Is he the right environment minister?
He's a longtime activist on these issues, so he comes by his knowledge and his credentials honestly. So, you know, in all honesty, I think that Guilbeault is a bold choice. I'm not sure that that's necessarily going to work out politically, but I think he's a bold choice because it demonstrates that Trudeau is anxious to push the accelerator on this file. So you take Wilkinson, who's the environment minister, who's totally committed to these climate change policies. You put him into natural resources. That is now an environmental portfolio. You put Guilbeault, an activist, as you say, a guy who climbs the CN Tower to demonstrate his commitment to these issues. You put him into environment. You send those guys to COP, guess what? You're going to get action. You're going to get commitment. Now, is that going to rub some people the wrong way? You bet. But it's a choice. And I think what we're hearing from the Prime Minister is he's decided he's making this choice on climate policy.
Jason, can we talk about Melanie Jolie? She's made some serious blunders, yet here she is as our new Foreign Affairs Minister. That's a huge portfolio. What did you make of this appointment?
Yeah, I thought it was a weird one. I take Tom's point. Melanie Jolie has a terrific CV on paper, but she didn't do a very good job over at Heritage and had to be sort of demoted and sent out to purgatory last year. And so I don't think she's been one of their best performers. And that's one of the head scratchers here. There's a couple of really good appointments. I thought Anand into defense was a good idea. I thought Duclos into health was a good idea. I thought Guilbeault into environment was a bit of I know what they're trying to do. I think they're going to buy themselves with trouble. But Melanie Jolie, she wasn't one of their top performers, and Guilbeault wasn't one of their top performers. These were two underperforming ministers. So I thought those two were real head scratchers. But I did really like the Anand to defense. I thought that's a place that I think needs to be cleaned up. I'm surprised Sajjan's still in cabinet for a lot of different reasons. I thought his leadership was horrible there, but it's nice to see Anita Anand, one of their most competent ministers, cleaning up that portfolio.
So, Tom, Melanie Jolie, only the second female foreign affairs minister that we've had. What do you make of her? Is this an opportunity for her to shine then?
Yeah, and Jason's making a fair point. When she was at Heritage, she did have a hard time. And the Purgatory was a smaller ministry. She went to tourism. She did very well. She just simply buckled down. She went off, licked her wounds, and came back. And she took on a bigger portfolio. She especially did well with the language file. You know, anybody who can bring forward language legislation that keeps the Acadians and the other Francophones outside Quebec and the English-speaking community of Quebec largely on side has done their homework. And so she learned the art and the importance of talking to everybody before you rolled something out. For example, that's something that Bill Blair never learned. He's the former chief of police. He gets to decide everything and just tells people what the new policy is. He was demoted a rung or two today, and along with Sajjan, and I have to say Carolyn Bennett as well, because she's going to basically a fictitious ministry in charge, you know, sort of an associate health minister in charge of mental health mostly. So some people seem to have one foot out the door. Mark Garneau, as we mentioned at the outset, has literally been thanked for his services. I mean, there are worse things in life than spending your time in Paris as an ambassador, but I'm sure he would have loved to have continued on in Ottawa. It's just not there. There are a couple of other people who were let go from cabinet, and it's an object lesson. There's always room to add people, and it's not because you're in now that you're in forever.
Scott, it is so important to note there isn't a lot of Western representation in this cabinet. Certainly not a good day for Albertans.
That's right. They get one cabinet minister and not an overwhelming portfolio of tourism. Now, Randy Boissonnault is well respected and well liked. He probably is going to make his splash no matter where he goes. But you take a look at the story of this cabinet. What really does it come down to? It comes down to a beefing up of Quebec. You know, this is a minority government. Remember that. They tried to secure a majority at re-election, failed. They tried to secure a majority in this last election, failed. I think the Prime Minister has decided his path to majority lies through Quebec. You got Jolie in Foreign Affairs. That's a bolstering. You Duclos, health. You got Guilbeault, put point on environment. New blood, like Laurent. So all of a sudden, you've got a real heavyweight contingent from Quebec. But you take a look at the prairies, it's pretty thin pickings.
Jason, when it comes to defense, with Anita Anand taking over from Harjit Sajjan, the issue is military misconduct. It's not even looking abroad. It's looking internally. How do you see her tackling this better than Sajjan?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, he was I think a disappointment. I think it's fair to say that he was a disappointment. I actually had really high hopes. I looked at his CV. He was, you know, a former top man in the military, you know, seemed like a great guy, said all the right things. And the truth is, a lot of the things that happened, these are decades in the making. These weren't his fault. The problem that he had was he didn't deal with them effectively. He either had the impression of sweeping them under the rug. I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying he didn't really do anything about a lot of the different things that were happening there, whether it's Mark Norman or the sexual assaults and harassment cases, the crisis in leadership. He hasn't really effectively done it. So Anita Anand, I think she was one of the star performers of the Trudeau cabinet, right? We can all criticize various things about how they handled the pandemic, but the bottom line is, even though I might have my criticisms, she fundamentally delivered vaccines to Canada, and she could explain herself day in and day out. I think the thing for them is they know that they can trust her. She's a woman, a very competent woman. She can speak her mind, and I think she's going to have the credibility going in there. So this is a national disgrace. Sajjan didn't do the job. I think that she's going to be better than Sajjan, and I have some confidence because Canadians, regardless of party, we need this to be cleaned up.
Tom, some have said this country has fallen out of love with Justin Trudeau. This is his third mandate, another minority government. Is this his last chance to get it right?
It is, and I mean, when you look at the beginning part that we talked about tonight, his fulfilling his own promise of being a feminist prime minister, putting women in the top positions like that, we're starting to look at legacy moves on the part of Mr. Trudeau. So I do believe he wasn't going to give any answer different from the one he gave today when he was asked if he's going to be around for the next election. He just smiled broadly and said, of course it's going to be me. But that's still an open question, and he knows it better than anyone. He just couldn't give a different answer from that one. So I think that he's also trying to make sure that on big issues like climate change, where he did not get it done, he's putting in place the very best people to try to get it done. With regard to women in politics, putting forward that really strong panel of women at the very top level of the Canadian government, never seen before, bold move. And he's going to follow through with regard to the Indigenous file. Mark Miller, very capable, very determined. He was sort of 2IC behind Carolyn Bennett, who simply underperformed in her part of that file. She's gone from that. Miller's going to take over, and I believe he's going to do a good job. So I think that Trudeau has started to think about what he's going to leave as a succession, if and when he does leave. Nobody's going to be pushing him out. The party doesn't operate that way anymore. We're not dealing with Chrétien and Martin. But I do think that Trudeau is trying to decide if and when he'll take that famous walk in the snow.
Okay, very interesting. Tom Mulcair, Scott Reed, Jason Leader, I want to thank you all for your time. We so appreciate this.